So hello, I am Angela Garner and I'm an animal bereavement support consultant. Animal loss can cause deep and significant grief. And you may be aware of the very tragic case that was reported in the media at the end of last year of a 42-year-old woman who took her own life after her beloved horse, who was called Jake, was euthanized. Of course, no one can be responsible for how anyone reacts. However, if you want to offer meaningful support, you need to endeavour to see the world through the eyes of the grieving owner. And this is what we'll be doing in my presentation. I work with vet practices and animal welfare organisations, teaching on all aspects of pet loss. These are the organisations with which I'm affiliated. I do have a direct connection with equines as I work part-time in the international department of the Donkey Sanctuary. Now, having worked in human healthcare for many years, and also from supporting people through pet bereavement, I am no stranger to dealing with end-of-life issues and the various emotions that loss invariably brings. So I can appreciate that it is highly stressful for those of you who are at the sharp end. Self-care is an important feature. And although there isn't time today to talk about compassion fatigue, it is hoped that you are aware of the warning signs and that there are support systems within your practice to address this. Grief is a journey which we all find ourselves face at different times during our lives, and is certainly not something to simply get over. This applies to yourselves and to your colleagues, as well as your clients. So sometimes extra support and understanding is needed within the team. So in this presentation, I will come from my experience of listening to pet owners who have lost animals over the years, and I will be sharing some of these insights with you. So today we will cover the effects of grief, supporting owners before, during, and after equine euthanasia, and looking at organisations which offer animal bereavement support. So why is bereavement support an important area? Whilst euthanasia might be a common occurrence in your practice, for the owner, the loss of a beloved equine can be a life-changing event. As vet professionals, you play a key role before, during, and directly after euthanasia. This is important because the way you communicate with the owner can influence how they cope throughout the whole process. People do not forget such a significant event. It can stay with them for years. And it's worth remembering that owners do talk to each other about their experiences, both positive and negative, so word does get around. From my experience, it is clear that people can be totally overwhelmed by the depth of emotions that they feel during grief. And I remember a few years back, a gentleman contacted me and we were talking on the phone. And he said to me, look, he said, I am a very successful businessman. I earn a lot of money. I have a lot of people working under me, and I'm usually in control of my life. But my dog died on Tuesday, and I've completely fallen apart. I'm driving along. I have to find somewhere to pull in by the side of the road because I'm bawling my eyes out. I simply don't know what to do. Now, this story shows not only that people can be taken aback by the anguish that they feel, but also that grief does not respect age, gender, or profession. Anyone can be affected. Many fears and worries start to surface as soon as the owner realizes that they are going to lose their beloved animal. So we'll take a look at what horse owners actually said during a workshop on coping with grief that I ran for a national equine company. How will I be with other people when they ask me about my horse? There's a great fear of actually breaking down in tears at the mere mention of their horse. Somebody else said, how long will it take to feel better? And sometimes there's the fear that they'll never feel normal again. I'm frightened of being alone through the process with no one to talk to. And there is often a great loneliness during grief. And somebody else said, memories die with them, making me feel nostalgic and fearful of my own time of passing. And I have noticed that people become much more aware of their own mortality during bereavement. So now we'll move on to looking at the effects of grief, and I'd like to share an analogy that I use. Now, in this analogy, a person's normal daily routine can be likened to a jigsaw puzzle with a picture which describes their life. Each piece represents an aspect of their life, such as home, partner, work, family, pets, and friends. Caring for their horse would naturally form a significant part because of the time and energy that is invested in a successful human-equine relationship. Now, normally, all these pieces are interconnected, fitting snugly together. And whilst each piece remains in place, everything is reasonably stable and familiar, allowing the person to cope with the general stresses and challenges that life brings. But what happens when the owner faces impending loss of their beloved horse, who up to now has been central to their life? With the onset of grief, the normal harmony of the person's life is suddenly shattered. And in this analogy, it's as though the whole puzzle is picked up and crashed to the ground, scattering the many component parts and dismantling the picture beyond recognition. This leaves people totally at sea, and suddenly they've lost the stability of their normal routine. And they do say things such as, my life has fallen apart, as did the man in the story when he lost his dog. Now they find themselves struggling with a whole roller coaster of emotions. The shock and denial, this can't be happening. Anger, sometimes directed at the vet staff. Bargaining, They may say, look, I'll pay any amount, please just save my horse. Confusion, unable to think clearly, and anguish from the overwhelming emotions. Depression, as life suddenly feels empty and without purpose. And of course, fear. I don't know how I'll ever get through this. And guilt, the if-onlys and the I should-haves. In summary, the normal stability of their daily life is lost, and they struggle to cope. Meanwhile, you're facing a highly distressed owner. So how can you help to counterbalance these destabilizing effects of grief? Communication is key. However, it's not only what you say, but how you say it. When supporting people through loss, they often tell me what it was like when their pet was euthanized. They describe how they were made to feel, how they were spoken to, perhaps even mentioning the look on the vet's face, rather than exactly what was said to them. And it's interesting that Morabian's communication model from 1981 shows us that only 7% is communicated by the words we use. 38% comes across in the tone of our voice. And the rest, which is 55%, is through body language and facial expression. It's not that you have to focus on each of these things individually. However, it is good to be aware of this. And if you have compassion and understanding, these will naturally be conveyed in how you communicate. And the owner, whose emotional sensitivity is heightened because of the process they are in, will feel it. In these next two slides, we'll look at aspects of communicating with distressed owners, and afterwards a few specifics of each stage before, during, and after euthanasia. In view of what we have covered so far, the aim is to reduce stress, fear, and worry in the client, and to engender a state of calmness, to offer clarity so that they understand what is going on, to enable them to respond accordingly. Warmth is a core component in bereavement support, and the owner needs a safe and non-judgmental situation so that they can express their emotions, to feel what they feel if they want to. To facilitate this, where possible, find a quiet, uninterrupted and private place for all end-of-life discussions. Give people time so that they don't feel rushed. Ensure that you're at the same eye level so that they don't feel talked down to. Be aware of the tone and speed of your voice, maybe softening the voice and speaking a bit slower than normal to enable them to take in what you're saying. At each step of the way, encourage them to ask questions and to air their concerns and fears so that you can address these at the point. Show that you are listening and hearing what they're saying so that they know their feelings are being respected. They may appear cold and aloof due to shock, or perhaps they're trying to hold back the tears until they reach the privacy of their own home. However, it is important to stay warm, and open in your approach, as this helps to keep the line of communications open. These are simple things which you may already do. When combined with genuine compassion and understanding, will make a difference. Move on to approaching euthanasia. Naturally, approaching euthanasia can be fraught with difficulties, especially when it's totally unexpected or the owner feels unable to let go. Now, owners tell me that making the right decision at the right time to say goodbye is one of the hardest parts of caring for an animal. So time invested now is time well spent. And we'll look at some pointers on end-of-life conversations. Shock may make it more difficult to take in what is being said. So explain things clearly and honestly to ensure that they understand. Repeat what you're saying, maybe in different ways, until they get it. Encourage them to plan ahead for the practical arrangements, the who, where, how, and the after-death services, and of course the costs involved. To help them recognise when the time is right, give them physical and behavioural markers, because this will help to reduce the many unknown factors that the owner is facing. Support during euthanasia. Even if you previously explained the procedure, go through each step clearly so that they understand what will happen, how it will happen, and how long it will take. And they need to be forewarned about what they will see and possibly hear. And I say this because pet owners have told me that they were shocked at how quickly their animal died, or worried by the physical signs of death, such as seeing the animal's eyes remain open. Support after euthanasia. Even when it was expected, the finality of death and the reality that their animal is not coming home is devastating. Of course, we never know what's going on in someone else's life. For example, the loss may be compounded by other stresses they are struggling with, or may rekindle previous unresolved grief. Therefore, you do need to expect anything in terms of irrational or even aggressive behaviour, although good preparation will go some way to reduce this. In addition to what we've covered so far, offer them a chance to sit quietly before leaving, especially if they're driving. Reassure them that they've done the right thing to help alleviate the feelings of guilt which so often surface after loss. And offer useful follow-up information either before the client leaves or include it in a sympathy card to be sent later. So in the sympathy card you could include who to contact at the surgery if they have questions about what has happened. People often say to me that they wished they could phone the surgery because there's something bothering them about what happened, but they feel they, better not phone. And also you can include information on where they can access further bereavement support. These organisations which offer animal bereavement support are listed in my abstract in your Congress handbook. I have been asked by the team on the Donkey Sanctuary stall to say that they do have a DVD and it's Growing Old Gracefully, and it's for owners caring for elderly donkeys. So I have a couple here if anyone would like those, or they're available from the Donkey Sanctuary. So in this presentation, we have looked at the effects of grief using the analogy of the jigsaw puzzle, ideas of supporting owners through the whole process of loss, and looked at where owners can access further bereavement support. To bring this to a close, it is important to remember that you cannot change the owner's situation, and that their grief is their journey. However, your understanding and compassionate support can make a significant difference as they begin to work through the process. It's in the courage of picking up each new piece of their life and carefully placing it where it fits best, so that in time a new picture is formed. Thank you very much for listening, and these are my website and email if you need to contact me in the future. Thank you.